Okay. What's up, Benji? How you doing?
Hey, Travis. Oh, see, I'm already screwing up.
It's a good
I'm that
start.
nervous. Yeah. Hey, Travis, how's it going?
Doing good, man. No worries. Dude, stoked to talk to you. Yeah, so you're the coffee guy. You're the coffee concierge. That's you. But what I like about what you do is, your like tagline is and like what you're all about is like making coffee at home, right?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the main simple tagline, but I've kind of tried to evolve it into making coffee at home without kind of being a snob about it. Because,
Okay.
the coffee world's a little bit snobby. And I also, I know it's kind of a contradiction because the name Coffee Concierge sounds super snobby. Um,
Right, yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, it just sounded like a cool name at the time. I was like, I was getting questions about coffee, from family and friends, and then obviously with the site. And so, I kind of felt like, oh, this is a good little alliteration, so I'll go with it. And, I'm serving up some answers, even though I'm not an expert. But I don't want to ever tell anybody what they should be doing. Like that's really the most important thing because coffee is, it's subjective.
Mm-hmm. Nice. No, I
I'm
like
not
that.
gonna like what you're gonna like and vice versa. So
Right. No, and I totally dig that. And it's like it can be intimidating to walk into a coffee shop sometimes, like if you don't know what you're doing.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
I was just reminiscing today about like my first experiences in specialty coffee shops, just to prepare for this interview, just kind of think about the timeline of this whole thing. And
uh-huh.
I don't know, have you ever been to Phil's Coffee?
Oh yeah, they just opened up one like half a mile away from me. It's great.
Okay, yeah, they're like expanding like crazy, and I just remember the first time I ever went into one, I had no idea what the hell was going on. Like, they had the register on one side, and then like a wall of baristas on the other side, and
Yeah.
then you've got this massive menu, and I'm like, at first paradox of choice. I don't know what to choose. And
Mm-hmm.
then you just get bombarded with questions. I'm like, I just want a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I want.
They're
Uh,
weird about how they like set up their like you order your coffee and then you just go pay, but then you walk back to get pick up your coffee again. It's kind of a
yeah,
weird
it's a
setup,
weird
yeah.
little flow. And actually, I was reading back because I'm originally from Berkeley, California, and I had actually applied to be a barista there when they were first opening that shop. And I was looking back to when it was that they were opening because I couldn't exactly remember how long it's been, but it's been about 10 years since they opened it. And apparently they recently closed it. And the reason for closing it was because the owner felt like, or at least the CEO, Jacob, I guess is the name, he's the son of Phil. He was saying something about like the flow of the cafe just didn't work
Huh.
kind of with how the other shops work.
Weird.
And I definitely got that vibe in there. Like as I said, I was just so confused about the whole process. It's like the coffee ordering was on the right, pay on the left, and then you go to the back up some stairs to sit down and enjoy the coffee. It just and so maybe I don't know. Maybe that was the reason. Maybe it wasn't, but yeah, to your point about it being kind of a strange experience, uh, I guess they were feeling the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a weird setup, but they like I feel like they at least kind of or at least now maybe they're trying to like help people order stuff because they have their like they still have like 20 or 30 different blends or types
Yeah,
of coffee, but they kind of describe it in a few words underneath, which I think really helps.
yeah, definitely. And as I said at the beginning of the call here, like everybody has different tastes, so it's good that they're like trying to customize the experience. But I know they've probably had this feedback from more than just. I mean, I haven't directly expressed this to them, but I'm sure they've heard it plenty of times that it's kind of overwhelming, at least the first time you go in there.
Oh yeah,
But I
totally.
guess any new experience is, right?
That's true. We should embrace that, I guess. That's what I'm told, at least.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah. So okay, I think I heard you. I was watching some of your videos. You mentioned something about like the third wave coffee movie or coffee movement, right?
Right.
What is that?
Yeah, I probably couldn't define it as best as I think Trish is her name, is the one who coined it, and she co-owns a shop with her husband, who is Nick Cho here in San Francisco, Wrecking Ball Coffee Roaster. So I believe she's the one that officially coined the term. That's just what I've heard.
Okay.
And basically, so the first wave is like your Folgers, convenience, low grade coffee, like think about Robusta beans. Really, I think when coffee first kind of started getting a little bit more mainstream here. Like, I'm not a coffee historian, let's full disclosure, but I think when coffee was, originally consumed, it was more about the convenience and the caffeine. So think about your Folgers, as I said.
Hmm.
And then along came Starbucks and Pete's. Pete's was first, and they were um, more about enjoying coffee for what it is and how it originates. So from whole bean form to freshly ground, and then came your lattes, your espresso based drinks.
Right.
So those are kind of big parts of the second wave, if you will. And then the third wave was more about really taking it a step further and making one cup at a time. I know Blue Bottle was really pushing this idea forward. Um, grinding your beans fresh right before instead of serving coffee right out of the air pots. More about drinking coffee black and from single origins versus blends. Um, so that's kind of where it's at. It's gotten out of control because everybody, everybody, and maybe I'm guilty of this too, thinks that they're an expert and is judging people for the way that they like to drink their coffee. So, I mean, if
Hmm.
you're into that Starbucks Frappuccino, then I'm not gonna, I mean, I might shame you for it if I was a coffee snob and
Right.
part of the third wave movement. Um, so I don't know, maybe there's gonna be a fourth wave that's like, let's tone it down a little bit and
So reel
just,
it back 2.5. Yeah.
yeah, who knows? But
Yeah.
that's my understanding of it. I think once upon a time applied to work at Wrecking Ball too. Um, Nick is quite a character. If you should follow him on Twitter, but he's the guy that's responsible for bringing the Kalita wave from Korea basically into the U.S. Have you heard of the Kalita wave?
No, what is that?
So it's like a pour over dripper. I don't know if you know the Chemex, right?
The just
Or
the like
so the
classic
Chemex,
looking.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like in the MoMA, and so then the Kalita is like a smaller version of that. I mean, they've got stainless steel versions, I think, ceramic, plastic, but the most common one you see is like a stainless steel one, and it's got a flat base
Hmm.
with three little holes on the bottom. Um, and I mean, there's so many different like pour over drippers, and that's just one of the ones that got really popular here in the States in recent years, and he was the one responsible for that. So, I mean, they're kind of like a power couple in the world of coffee. Yeah.
Nice.
And I believe they're actually opening a shop, last I heard, in Berkeley, maybe their second location.
Oh, okay.
I still haven't tried Wrecking Ball.
Hmm.
Which is ironic considering I live in a city where it's offered.
Right. Yeah. It's all right. You'll get there. No worries.
Yeah, I'll get there right after this call. I'll head over
Yeah. Yeah. We trust you. Um. Yeah, man. But that's kind of like why because I've been following you for a bit. Um. Why I was kind of like drawn to your stuff is you're like just a normal person who likes coffee and like likes to kind of likes the ritual of coffee and enjoys it, but you're not like it's not your whole life, which I feel like I'm on the same level as you right there.
Cool. Well, it's good to hear that you relate. Like sometimes I don't know if I'm connecting with anybody necessarily, like
Yeah.
with the stuff I'm putting out there. I mean, it's just kind of like you wait and see. But I'm glad that you agree with that kind of
Yeah.
philosophy.
Right. I mean, like, I would assume most people are on that level. Like the first time I had really good coffee, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like, damn, this thing doesn't need cream or sugar in it. It's like
I
it's good
know.
by on its own. So it's like that kind of opens your eyes where you're like, damn, maybe there's other stuff that out here.
Yeah.
But it's like at the same time, I'm not going to spend, hours a day doing this stuff and researching it too. So I think
Right.
that's where you kind of fill the gap in there and help me and help people out with that arena, I guess.
Yeah, it's all about that balance, right? Like you don't want to spend too much time like getting that good result. But I mean, some people do, and like,
Mm-hmm.
they want to get into the nitty-gritty details and but I think the majority of people kind of want to balance out the convenience with the quality.
Yeah,
Like best of both worlds, right?
totally.
Um so yeah, I know what you mean though about that kind of mind blown moment when you first have a cup of specialty coffee,
Yeah.
and I still remember my first time. I think it was my girlfriend and wife. Well, girlfriend at the time, wife now. She brought me into Ritual Coffee Roasters, and I like ordered one of the pour overs there. I think it was like a single origin African coffee, and I was just like, wow, this is incredible. Like because
Yeah.
like I don't know. I feel like the Pete's and Starbucks coffees of the world, like they all kind of taste the same. I mean, they're more darkly roasted, right? And
Mm-hmm.
darker roasted coffee, I think it's harder to pick up nuances in it.
Yeah.
And so it's just like it tastes like coffee. Like that's your concept of what coffee
That's
tastes
what
like.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you have something that's a little lighter, and then you're like, whoa, like I'm picking up all these other things that I guess were masked before. Like and
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like they get turned off by that initially because they're like because it's so far from what their concept of coffee is that it's almost like I don't want to be drinking tea. Like where's the coffee flavor?
Right.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
this is too acidic. What is this about? So
Yeah.
it's definitely an acquired taste, just like I think dark roast coffee is. Like
Hmm.
nobody likes coffee the first time they try it. Like
That's true.
as far as I know.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So for like somebody listening who's like they're hearing this and they're like, man, maybe I really haven't had like a good, cup of black coffee or something to really change it. What can you recommend to them or where can they go to find something like that?
Just find the most hipster looking coffee shop like that you can. No,
Right.
no. I always tell people like, well, you don't want to be going to Starbucks and Pete's because I think you're gonna just get more. Well, if you've never had coffee before, sure you can try that out. But I mean, I would look out for a place that has like a situation where they are brewing coffee one cup at a time. Because I do think that's a strong indication that they're probably working more with lighter roasts.
Hmm.
Um, and the other thing I would say about it is to really just be patient. I mean, if you don't love it the first time, don't don't give up on it. Like I think it takes a few tries before you're gonna hone in on something that you like because not all coffee tastes the same. That's for sure, and you start to pick that up the more you try,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to like the origins of the coffee. Like, and that's kind of further down the line. I think, for somebody that's just getting into coffee, try something that is dark, try something that is medium, and try something that's light. Like, go across the spectrum of different roast levels, and I think you'll have a good sense for what fits your taste buds, if anything.
Hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
Right. So let's dig into like the, making coffee at home stuff and like the different, equipment or gear or like techniques to make coffee, I guess. So can you just give me I mean, the auto drip, cold brew, French press, pour over stuff. Can you just kind of give me like an overview, maybe like pros and cons of all those kind of, if that's not like a huge question?
Yeah, well, it's funny because a lot of people, when they're first starting their quest to making coffee at home, they focus on the equipment and they're thinking, oh, well, if I have a better coffee maker, then that's gonna, set me off on the right track to better
Uh-huh.
coffee. So usually what I'll say is like before focusing on the equipment, start focusing on the coffee itself.
Okay.
So, you know, a big thing is like a lot of people, I think their early exposure is to Keurigs and pods because they're
Hmm.
convenient. They don't take a lot of guesswork. And so that's like a nice intro level into making coffee at home, even though it's not, I mean, you're not really doing much.
Right.
But I would say, like, if you really want to see um, good initial results, I would just buy some coffee from a local cafe. Assuming you don't have a grinder, which you probably won't, just have them grind it for you for like something like a drip machine. That's probably the best place to start. Because it's usually going to be like a nice medium versatile grind that could be used for various brew methods. And most people, they start with drip coffee makers, like auto drip coffee makers. So
Yeah.
in terms of equipment, like, um, that's probably a nice starting point because like if you're not going to be into doing it by hand, then you probably never will be.
Okay.
I mean, you might come around and start enjoying the ritual of it, but I think probably the majority of people just want to start making a cup as quickly as possible early on. So I think the right balance between the quality and the convenience in this case, like to my point before, is like get an auto drip coffee maker and have a cafe grind up some beans for you.
Hmm.
Um,
Easy.
when shopping for coffee, you should be, I tend to tell people not to buy it from the grocery store. And this is like it's pretty cliche advice amongst people in the coffee space, but, coffee that is, say, roasted several months ago isn't going to taste as good as coffee that was roasted 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So a strong like tell, like when you're buying coffee at the grocery store, is if it has a roasted on date. If it does have a roasted on date, then that probably indicates to you that it was roasted, you know, somewhat recently. Obviously, you would check the date to make sure that was true.
Right.
If it has a best buy date, then that's a strong indication that it's not going to be as fresh.
Okay.
Um, so that's a tip I would give is like buy coffee that is freshly roasted and there's a strong indication that it was. Um, and then the other side of the coin is water. Like um, if you are using tap water and you live in a place that has hard water or there's a lot of minerals in it, like you probably want to get something that's a little bit filtered down.
Okay.
So, I mean, definitely use a water filter, I would say,
Hmm.
with the water that you brew with, because your coffee's only going to taste as good as the water you use, as well as the
Right.
coffee you use. So, those are where I recommend people start. Um, and
Okay.
then,
No. So, but
yeah,
but
a
they could
long
just
answer.
no, no, no. That's good. So, I mean, that's good to hear. People can just start with like the classic Mr. Coffee maker that everybody has.
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. Yeah. Like that's a $20 machine last I checked, or $25.
Yeah.
And you can get fancier than that, but like that will just make it nice and easy for you.
Hmm.
Um, and really focus on the coffee you're buying and the water you're using for starters. And then work your way up from there. Um, Really the next place I would like focus on in terms of equipment still wouldn't be the coffee maker. It would be a grinder.
Okay.
Um, this is another big misconception. People think that the coffee maker is what matters most. It's the grinder that matters more than anything aside from the coffee and the water.
Okay. Interesting.
So a lot of people are like, oh, okay, coffee grinder, that's cool. It's like $10, $15. And that's fine. You can buy one of those like simple little spice grinders, the classic one, Krups that you like just put some beans in and it has the blade that whirs around.
Yeah.
That works. And like you can definitely start there, like, or you start freshly grinding your coffee right before you brew it. That should probably give you some nice results. And then you go further down the line and start getting into burr grinders and such. But I don't want to overwhelm people that are listening to this. It's really like grinding your own coffee is the next step
Okay.
after the coffee and the water and the cheap machine.
But so there's kind of like the blade grinder, the class, like, whatever one that people normally see, and then the burr grinder, right?
Yeah.
And generally the burr grinder is what you really want to go for.
Yeah, and so I mean, there's several reasons for that. So the blade grinder, one of the big downsides of it is that you're kind of it's hard to get the grind consistent. So I mean, all of the beans that are being chopped up in there, you're going to have a bunch of different particle sizes. And the bigger ones are going to basically extract less. So basically make kind of a weaker coffee. Whereas like the finer particles are going to extract more. So it would be more on the stronger spectrum. So when you have all that mixed together, you can have some inconsistent results. So the burr grinder, I mean, the main benefit of it is that you're going to get more consistency out of the particles that it grinds up, because it's basically crushing the beans between, this mechanism, if you will, the two burrs.
Right.
And, there's also the matter of like different brew methods require different grind sizes or work best with different grind sizes. So your French press would have a coarser grind than espresso. And with the blade grinder, you can't really hone in on the right grind size for the brewery you're using.
Right.
So that's kind of another big argument for why you would want a burr grinder.
Okay.
But if you're not making espresso, like, I mean, burr grinders definitely still have plenty of use for other brew methods, but I didn't even consider one until I started trying to make espresso at home, because you need a burr grinder to make espresso, period.
Okay.
Like you can't really do it with a blade grinder.
I see.
You could try, but you won't get very good results.
It's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
And then so when we're looking at like a burr grinder, I have one of just like a little one hand crank,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what are you drinking? Espresso?
Yeah, we're talking about it. So
Nice, man.
before we hopped on.
Damn, I should have been more prepared like you. Nice.
No.
Yeah, I got like one of the hand crank ones. And that thing was like, I don't know, $20 or something like that.
Yeah.
So they're not bad, but the hand grinding's kind of annoying. It's kind of nice at first, but then I got kind of, over it. Yeah. So like, what are you kind of looking at price range for a decent, like, do they have automatic ones?
Yeah.
Electric ones or whatever. Okay. Yeah. What are those price range for those things?
Yeah. So, like an entry level burr grinder that is electric. So the first one I ever bought was called the Compresso Infinity, and that's about just under $100.
Okay.
So like most entry level electric, I think probably you're looking at $75 to $100 on the low end.
Okay.
I think I may have seen some cheaper ones out there, but I can't really speak to the quality of them. Once you really want to, like, once you get into the $200 range, that's when you're starting to work with stuff that will kind of cover most brew methods and do a good job. So I own the Breville Smart Grinder Pro. I've been using it for years, and it can pretty much do every brew method from, drip to espresso, and does not as great a job with the coarser stuff. It's just not as consistent, but really, if you're trying to get the whole spectrum of brew methods, like you can end up spending way more money than that, like $400, $500. Then you're starting to get into the best like home burr grinders. But I would say in the $100 to $200 range, you should be able to find something that would work well for most people. Usually the one I recommend is the Baratza Encore, which I think is $130.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
Yeah. Barat's is kind of like the king of grinding. Or at least
Okay.
home grinders. Yeah, they're a solid brand.
Nice. Good to know.
So are you talking about the Hario hand crank
Yeah,
mini mill? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that's what I have.
Yeah, that was the second one I bought because the Compresso Infinity wasn't doing the job for espresso. So I bought the hand crank one, the one you're talking about, and yeah, it takes forever. Like takes
Yeah.
like 15 minutes just to
Yeah.
grind
When
for
you're
one
going super
shot.
fine. Yeah, for
Yeah,
real.
great for travel though.
Yeah, true. And I
If you
mean,
don't
it's probably
mind.
that's a good way to start, right? And try it out.
Totally. Yeah, and it really gets you familiar with the ritual.
Mm-hmm.
I know my wife got especially over it because it's like when we wake up in the morning, she wanted some coffee. I'm like, all right, hold on a sec. It just takes 15 minutes to grind the coffee, and by then she's like, I'm over
Yeah,
it. I don't even want any
I'm
coffee at
done.
this point.
Yeah. I'm just like, I wonder this. I'm just thinking about this, but like, I wonder if you could hook up like your drill to it and just like spin that thing. Have people
Yeah,
done that?
people have done that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. People do all kinds of crazy stuff with them, modifications, and I haven't played around with it, but
Right. That
yeah,
sounds
you
fun.
you can be creative.
So now what about the like let's say you go to the grocery store, find a good bag of beans that, was brewed or was roasted like less than a week ago or something. Um can you are using those like in-store grinders ever a good idea?
If you don't have a grinder, yeah, that's fine. I
Better than
mean,
nothing.
a lot of people parrot this idea that within 15 minutes the coffee is no longer um, close to as fresh as it would have been had you started brewing it like 2 minutes after grinding it.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
it's getting staler and staler as the longer you let that pre-ground coffee sit. But honestly, like it's more anecdotal, I think, than anything. I try not to like um, say that too often because I haven't actually done thorough tests where I've tested coffee that was ground, say, a day ago versus 15 minutes ago to discern between any major differences. But I mean, so yeah, the sooner you brew after grinding, the better, they say. Um, but yeah, if you don't own a grinder, it's totally fine to use one of those grinders at the store. Just something to keep in mind is that they probably have some. They're probably not cleaned very often, so they
Hmm.
probably have some older ground coffee buildup in them and
Yeah,
oils, and
totally.
and that's going to be getting into your coffee too. So, but again, this is just mostly anecdotal stuff. It's not gonna. Most people aren't gonna really pick that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to say like the where like the 15 minutes comes from. It's like
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
comes up
It's
with
just a
these
good
rules? Are
number.
they so I,
Yeah.
I understand that, but
It's
yeah,
totally arbitrary.
right. So no, I
It's
like that. I feel this is good though. I like where we're kind of like pointing people where like, you know, it's best to grind it right before you brew it, but
We're not gonna shame you if you do
yeah,
it the other way.
yeah, right. Like just do whatever you want. Like
Yeah.
if it doesn't taste any different to you, then whatever, right?
Yeah. If you're dissatisfied, we'll give you the next step to maybe make it even better.
Yeah.
But if you're happy with what you're doing right now, then keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I always say.
Yeah. No, that's good. So, I mean, let's talk about like the different types of beans and stuff, or because like you talked about, I think you mentioned Robusta before and like Arabica, if I'm even saying those right. Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, probably a better question for an actual coffee professional, but it's just two different types of species, and I mean like general classes of like really general species of coffee. Those are the two most widely known ones. You have more specific species within those two groups, but you commonly hear Robusta and Arabica. Robusta tends to typically be grown at lower elevations. Um, the crops they're not as vulnerable as, say, Arabica, but Arabica is like the better quality. Well, it's not always the better quality beans. There are good Robusta beans out there, but um, Robusta beans tend to, I think, taste a little bit more rubbery They have
Oh.
this very distinct flavor. Folgers, I think, was known for using Robusta in their instant coffees. But now, like Arabica is really the preferred bean in 99 out of 100 blends, and
Oh.
um, that's mostly what's being served up across the different cafes that you probably go to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Robusta is also known for being more caffeinated versus Arabica.
Okay.
So if you've heard of like Death Wish coffee and such, like all these all these clever marketing coffee marketers out there are making these blends that have Robusta beans in them, but they also have Arabica. So it's like they're not tasting horrible, but they're also giving you an uptick in caffeine because the blends are using Robusta. So, I mean, there's a more specific species within those two more general species, but you probably want to ask somebody that knows way more about this. Somebody like James Hoffman. Uh, Book World Atlas of Coffee is a great one. I always recommend that goes into more detail about that stuff.
Okay. Book World.
Yeah.
Okay. Book World Atlas of Coffee.
So the World Atlas of Coffee is
Oh,
what it's
World
called.
Atlas. Okay.
And
Cool. That's good
James
to know.
Hoffman, the guy that wrote that book, has an amazing YouTube channel that he's been putting more time into over the years, recent years, I should say. So highly recommend checking that out. It's a
Okay.
great channel. Yeah.
No, that's good. Good to know. And then so like when because the way I pick coffee is like I just pray that there's some sort of a description under it,
Uh
of like describing what it is. So I have like a hope of what I'm going for. But like, how do
Tasting
they?
notes.
Yeah. Like how are tasting notes developed? Like different, they're like it's oaky or it's chocolatey or something. Where does that come from?
Oh, I think usually the roasters and staff that work um, alongside the roasters or at these cafes, what they do is, they have cuppings, which is basically a time to just sit around and taste the different coffees that they've been roasting up. So what they'll do is, basically set a table with little bowls with the different types of beans. They'll grind up the coffee. They'll add the hot water, and they'll take a spoon and stir it around or not stir it around. They'll start slurping on the coffee, and then they'll be writing notes on it to describe, kind of what the taste is.
Uh-huh.
And everybody's going to pick up different stuff, but probably the way they come up with what is on the bag is what the most consensus tasting note is amongst that panel of people that try the coffee.
Okay.
Say, yeah, that's what I imagine happens. Again, not a coffee professional, so I haven't been part of those.
Right.
I've been invited once. I never went out to it, but that's how I think it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, there's probably some BSing going on. It's just like, oh, that slightly tastes like a honeydew. So let me
Right.
write that. Let's put that in the description.
Yeah. And then I'm like, oh yeah, there's definitely honeydew in there,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
So, but
try
like,
not to look at those notes just so I'm not like being biased or like that bias isn't kind of coming to my head when
oh,
I'm trying
okay.
to make the coffee myself.
Right.
So I'll try and ignore those notes and just come up with my own. But it's hard to not look at them
Yeah.
and want to
But
taste what they're right in there.
yeah, totally. That's where I think I've totally fallen that trap. But like, where would that even? So, are they when they make like when they, I don't know, when they roast a coffee bean, are they like trying to get a certain flavor or like tasting note or something in there, or how do those appear in there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think so. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of trial and error that goes on here. So it's like
Uh-huh.
I think sourcing coffee goes, you'll have like a coffee sourcer within these companies that goes out to these different regions of the world. They grow coffee. They'll go to various farms, and then they'll basically be tasting the coffee directly from the farmers who have, actually grown the coffee, and then they decide what they're going to buy from there. They bring it back to the States, so they bring back the green coffee beans, and then they start roasting them in different ways, and the ways that they are roasting the beans basically has an impact on how it ultimately tastes too. So I think the trial and error for a roaster or like a coffee company is basically, well, yeah, we want to pick good green beans from these various regions we go to, but we also want to roast it in a way to really accentuate the most flavor.
Okay.
So I think it kind of comes after the fact. Like they're not like, oh, if I roast it this way, it's going to taste that way. There's probably some of that, intuition in a roaster's mind, I would imagine, but I think a lot of it is probably pretty arbitrary, and it just comes after the fact.
Okay.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
No,
It's not
I
like
mean that's
it's not like they're adding like vanilla flavor or
okay.
yeah, they're kind of just trying to get the most flavor out of those beans as possible with the way they roast it. I think that's what it comes down to.
Okay. No, that's good to know. Because I would always envision that they were like, because I think at least with like brewing beer or something, they'll like add in flavors or like add,
Right.
apricots into it or something like that. But so I just assumed they did the same thing with coffee, but apparently it's not the case.
I think big commercial coffee companies will add flavors after the coffee has been roasted. I think that's how it works. But yeah, the specialty coffee places, especially coffee roasters, they're not adding anything into the process. It's just like it's pretty pure. It's like the bean, and then you roast it. There's things like, again, like I said, the origin and the way the coffee was processed, which is a whole other topic. Those things impact the flavor as well, but it's not like there's any additives here. There are exceptions to that rule, though, I should say. I reviewed a coffee that was infused with red wine. And I can't remember exactly what the process was. I think they soaked the beans in red wine before they roasted it in like like an oak barrel.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I mean, there are exceptions to that, but for the most part, yeah, not a lot of additives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, good to know, man. I was always curious about that, so I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say, someone listening to this, they got some good beans, they got a little grinder, they're grinding it themselves, and they're getting some pretty good coffee. What's the next step to take things further?
Yeah. So that's a good question, and it's kind of you can go pretty far, but it's really about like I think you want to try a lot of different stuff before you start thinking like, oh, I need new equipment, I need better equipment, because I think once you're starting to brew the coffee, you want to obviously you want it to taste good in the majority of cases, but if it's just consistently if it's consistently tasting bad, you're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And I would circle back to the ingredients that you're using. So again, the coffee and the water.
Okay.
But assuming you have that dialed in and starting to taste good.
Wait, real quick, just to about the water. So do you really just want to filter your water? Is that it?
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, I think in most cases, yes, because filtered water is going to be better than tap water, which isn't to say there's bad tap water in some of the places that we live. I mean, I know San Francisco has great tap water. You do want, there is like an ideal mineral balance out there. So this is where you can really start going down the rabbit hole even further. But the Specialty Coffee Association has come up with like a perfect formula of water for brewing coffee.
Okay.
And you could probably find it somewhere online. And there have been companies, one as far as I know, that actually they produce these little packets that are basically that water formula that you add into distilled water, and then you allegedly have the perfect water for brewing coffee.
Okay.
But I think, a lot of people aren't going to want to go through that, right?
Yeah.
Have to go and buy like a distilled water jug so I mean, filtration is definitely like basic filtration. I think is a good place for everybody to start in terms of just having a baseline, because I think, you don't want to filter out everything, but still, like, I think in most cases, having more filtered out than less is going to be what you want to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess to like, if you're unsure if it's the water that's messing up your coffee, you could always like buy a packet of that mineral stuff and try it out once.
Yeah, totally. That's one way to kind of take that variable out of the equation, or
Yeah.
at least make it consistent. But I would focus, just keep it simple, and even a Brita. I just use like a Brita water filter.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people are comfortable with that. So
Seems to work. Yeah.
good starting point. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, assuming like you got all of that stuff working, then I would probably say the next step would to just be trying out some different brew methods. So if you're only using the Mr. Coffee, maybe like the coffee tastes a little weak or thin to you, and you want something that has a little bit more grit, not grilt, some mouthfeel, and then you might want to try out a French press, and really just experiment with new brew methods. I think that it's kind of a good next step. And maybe like at that point you're going to find, oh, well, I prefer this brew method over that brew method. So that would probably be like the next step. Start playing more with the equipment once you've got something working for you in terms of the coffee and the water and what you're doing with just a basic drip machine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I guess in general, maybe what's sort of the difference between like going through kind of a paper filter or something like you would with just a drip coffee, or like an auto drip or something, versus like a French press where there's no real paper filter? Don't you get like a difference in oils and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So paper is going to filter out the most.
Okay.
So you'll have something that is quote unquote cleaner, or doesn't have as much oil or sediment, whatever you want to call it,
Uh-huh.
sludge, sprudge. Have you heard of Sprudge? They're like a whole online coffee magazine, a big one out there. And then French press is like the opposite end of things. It's like you're going to get more through your filter, because it's letting more through. It's letting more oil and other stuff through. That's why you'll typically find that sediment at the bottom of your cup, because that's all the unfiltered coffee that was able to make it through the French press filter. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So a lot of the reason that people tend to like Chemex is because Chemex is really thick paper filters. It gives you a pretty clean cup of coffee without any of that extra oil. But a lot of people don't like that, so they go for French press. So
Right.
yeah, and then there's other kinds of filtration. There's like some people use cheesecloth for cold brew, I know, and that's somewhere in between paper and permanent.
Okay.
But yeah, basically like the permanent metal filters, like those are going to let more through, and then paper will less through, and it
Okay.
definitely has a big impact. In
Yeah, you could
fact, no, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well, I was just saying, no, you can definitely taste. The first time I had French press coffee, it was like, I pooped more than I normally do, you know?
Yeah,
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 those oils come through.
yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
So like, yeah, that's kind of it goes hand in hand with different brew methods. I mean, filters are kind of part of that. Different brew methods have different filters. So that's kind of like part of the equation in terms of seeing what you like after you got something that's a good foundation in terms
Hmm.
of coffee and water.
Right.
Yeah.
And then so like when you're trying to like try out these different brewing methods, I guess, is it best to find coffee shops that have these different ones that have them do it for you rather than because you can't buy all that
Totally.
equipment. Yeah.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, I would highly recommend that. I mean, it's going to be harder to find a coffee shop that's making AeroPress coffee
Hmm.
um, than, say, something like a Haria V60, which is like a pretty standard um, pour over drip coffee maker that you'll see in a lot of places. But yeah, I mean, if you can find a place that is using those different brew methods, then definitely go that route before buying the equipment, especially if you have a small kitchen with limited space and or a significant other that doesn't want you, you know, filling up all the cabinets with that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. And then so what about cold brew? Is that how does that method work?
Yeah, so basically, to its name, you're not using hot water. You're using cold water, room temperature water that basically there's several different ways to make it. The most common way is to just take your ground coffee, mix it with your room temperature cold water, um, then just give it a stir. So you could do this in like a pot at home. You don't need a coffee maker. And then you basically leave that uh, you just let it sit out, and a lot of people just put it in the fridge. Some people let it just sit out like in room temperature. Um, and if you let it steep for about 6 to 24 hours, there's a big range there. That's basically how you come up with cold brew coffee. It's usually going to be a concentrate, so whereas you would maybe do like something like a 15 to 1 water to coffee ratio with like a drip coffee maker or a French press. With cold brew, like it's more typical to do something that's around 8 to 1. So it's going to be more concentrated. So you're going to have something that is a lot stronger just by itself.
Hmm.
So a lot of people dilute it afterwards with water. Some
Right.
people like it just straight as it is. Um, but yeah, that's the basic process. Uh, you will want to probably run that final concoction through an additional filter or through a filter period because
Yeah.
it's not filtered, right? So you're gonna want to pour it through either a paper filter. Some people actually just do it all on a French press. So you could, if you have
Oh,
a French press, you can just use the plunger to
right.
to filter the stuff.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, so
Cool.
that's a good one, like that really anybody can do, um,
Hmm.
as long as they have ground coffee and water and let
Yeah.
it hot.
Right. No, that's what I do. That's like my main coffee situation is I have one of those toddy coffee makers
Right.
and just cold brew. I do like a bucket of regular coffee that I mostly shop at Trader Joe's and try their different stuff, and then do like a decaf, and then so I'll
Uh-huh.
have both those sitting in the fridge. I like people say they're good for like 2 weeks or whatever. I don't know. I usually go through them in like a week, well, a week to 2 weeks. So it seems fine to me sitting in the fridge for that long. And then it's just the concentrate, and then from both of those I can make I can do like a cold brew iced coffee type of thing, or mix it with with hot water and then have a hot coffee. So it's great. I like
Exactly.
with those two things I could have hot or ice regular coffee or decaf like any time of the day really quick. So it's perfect for me.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that you can, make hot coffee with the cold brew concentrate. So
Hmm.
it's definitely like versatile. It's a good
Yeah.
thing to have sitting around. It's super convenient, and you can just batch it.
Yeah. That's what I love about it too. It's not,
Yeah,
I don't have to set up the coffee maker every morning or anything like that. It's just a quick do it once every week or so, and it's always good to go.
and that's why you're able to pump out all these podcasts.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
get so much extra time. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's really
Yeah. Just pour a quick caffeine kick and get to it.
nice. There you go.
Yeah. So do you have like a daily ritual or go-to like system that you use, or what's your coffee, world look like?
Yeah, probably not as crazy as a lot of people would think. Um, if I have beans lying around, then I'll usually grind those up and, just kind of decide in that moment what I'm going to use, depending on how much effort I want to put into it. So, like, if it's a weekend morning, I'll be more likely to do like a Chemex. If it's a weekday, then I'm going to do something that's quicker. So I'll just throw it into the auto drip coffee maker, or I've got one called American Press that's pretty quick. Makes a couple cups, and I'll just do that one. Um, in the past, I like to constantly mix it up, but I own far fewer coffee makers than I used to. Uh, just to my point before about limited space and not trying to
Right.
take up too much cabinet room. Um, and then there's also, that whole paradox of choice. If you have too many, like you're not gonna even make a decision about, what to use. You're just gonna throw your hands up and maybe brew up some instant coffee. But the last few weeks I've been making instant coffee. Actually, I've been trying out this new instant coffee called it's called Waka,
Hmm.
Waka, and it's actually quite good.
Oh,
So
okay.
instant coffee is going through a little second wave right now,
All right.
where it's starting to get a little bit better quality. Um, so, sometimes I really just get lazy and um, just do something that's quick and easy. Um,
Hmm.
but the ritual stuff is more on the weekends.
Yeah. No, cool. I mean, I think that's kind of like I don't know, the key takeaway here is it's like, how much time do you want to devote to it? And like, it's just like a balance of stuff, I guess. You can get good quality for fairly quick, but more time might be higher, but whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to, really. If you have a lot of time on your hands, then for sure, like, you know, um, you'll be down to invest more time in making the coffee.
Hmm.
But I think, a lot of people drink coffee because they want to pick me up,
Yeah.
not just, to enjoy it. I want both personally. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I've arrived at this point of, you know, that balance.
Hmm. Dude, yeah, I know. That it's kind of sexy and fun and like relaxing and to do the whole thing and to boil some water and grind it up yourself and everything. Like my girlfriend Sydney, she doesn't drink coffee. It gives her a headache, so she can't really drink much of it. She
Uh-huh.
likes the smell of it and used to drink it and stuff, but she's like, I'm so jealous of, that you can just drink coffee every morning because it's so like romantic.
Yeah, there's something about it. Like, and even like once you've got that cup of coffee and it's still hot, and just, relishing in that moment and enjoying the aroma, which in my opinion is often better than the taste.
Yeah.
Like I
No.
feel like I'm constantly trying to produce, um, like basically capture that aroma and the way the coffee tastes. Like
Hmm.
if the coffee tastes like it smells, then I've done a good job.
Yeah.
But those moments are few and far between. Yeah.
Oh
So
man.
so she's really not missing out I
Right,
mean,
she's getting the good stuff. Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to say like I wouldn't want to be in her position. Like I definitely want to be able to drink my coffee, but the smell is pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Sweet. Okay, well, Benji, we got you. People can check you out at the coffeeconcierge.net, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. So I'll have a link for that stuff. And then you're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that, right?
Yeah, I'm on most of the channels, but the one that I would probably promote is my YouTube channel
Okay.
because I'm really bad at Instagram and Facebook. Like I'm just not as active as I should be.
Okay.
Uh, I am on there though, so feel free to follow. Got an email newsletter too that you can check out.
Yeah.
Working on getting that cleaned up and updated. So
Sweet.
yeah,
Hell yeah, man. Well, yeah, I'll have links for all that stuff, to your YouTube channel, the website, and everything. Yeah, because
appreciate it.
you just got a lot of like to really dive into the different, makers and types of coffee and everything like that. You have a lot of info on there, which is very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm hoping to put out some more. I've been not as active in recent years, but trying to find more time to put into it. So
Right. No, I
thanks
get
for
you.
yeah, thanks for taking the time to have me on here. It's been
Oh,
fun.
hell yeah, of course. Thanks for coming on and sharing all your info in a non coffee snobby way.
Yeah, hopefully I achieved that.
Oh no, it's great.
Cool.
Cool, man. Well, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a good one, all right?
You too. Thanks, Travis.
Yeah.